Step 11. A higher power was worth knowing better by direct contact as possible. The persistent use of meditation and prayer we found did open up the channel, the fourth dimension, the sixth sense. So practicing these steps, we had a spiritual awakening about which finally there was no question. The doubter who still claimed that he hadn't got the spiritual angle and who still considered his well-loved AA group the higher power would presently love God and call him by name. Dangerous things in AA is human powers thinking they're gods. Now, what about the rest of the 12th step? The wonderful energy it releases and the eager action by which it carries our message to the next suffering alcoholic, which finally translates the 12 steps into action upon all our affairs. The magnificent reality, they call it, of Alcoholics Anonymous. And what are you sharing? You're sharing the problem. We died together. You're sharing the solution. I'm on the path. You're on the path. This is the search. That's the magnificent reality of Alcoholics Anonymous. We're just not saying, hey, now we're all sober. We're saying, hey, not only are we sober, you may not even like it, but you're on the path. Do you want to come along? Hey, you can come at your own pace, any way you want. Doesn't matter. But buddy, you're on the path. Too bad. Trapped. Why do you think they say, once you've had any exposure to Alcoholics Anonymous, it ruins your drinking? Because the spirit of AA, the spirit of this magnificent reality of Alcoholics Anonymous is bigger than the spirit of Scotch. And it's going to mess you up when you go back out there. You've tasted something that's far more addictive. He does not expect his brother sufferer to pay him or even love him. And then he discovers that by the divine paradox of this kind of giving, he has found his own reward, whether his brother has received it or not. I can't tell you the amount of peace I get just reading that. I have one dead brother, one half-dead sister, and another brother on the way. And I have to remember that it is in my prayers and in my petition to my God and in my giving and in my opportunity to be of service and with any other alcoholic that the gift is I have received, whether they get it or not. I mean, when I work with people that I talk to or whatever on the phone, let me tell you, I hang up. I don't know whether they get it or not. And we're talking about sober exchange now. It doesn't really matter. I feel better for having had I got the gift. I don't know what happens to them, really. And that's really important to know. It's important to know that it's the experience of giving that you receive, not the results of what happens. That's their business. And then there's all kinds of other 12-step work that they talk about that I think is just great. When they say that it is 12-step work when you sit in an AA meeting and listen, I never realized that before. Sitting in a meeting and listening is 12-step work. And then I realized when I was new and all the people that came and they had 20, 30 years of sobriety and 25 years, and God, they're sitting there in the meeting and they're the same meeting every Sunday and they're sitting there curmudgeon-y, but they're there. And then I realized, wow, what a 12-step call they're making on all us newcomers. I looked to see if they'd show up, and they do. And they were sober all this length of time. I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. And then I realized that the newcomers are just as important as the old-timers. Because there's a newcomer with 24 hours. And then another guy with 18 hours. And the 18-hour guy can't believe that the 24-hour guy's there the next day. And then he can't believe he has 24 hours. And then they start chasing those hours. And they become a day and 2 days and 3 days. And then they're best friends for life. And then they have lives and fill up with lives. And then they move to one place and another place. And they're going through an airport terminal 20 years later. And they see each other and they break into tears. People wonder what the hell happened to those two guys. And they don't know their name, the last name. They don't know what happened. Huge exchange. And then they talk about the reassurance and support of people who just sit in the meetings, because if you just come, that you're making a 12-step call on another person, you don't even know it. And you come to think that you're just coming to receive. In fact, you're coming to give. by coming to give that you get it back. Then you talk about speaking at a meeting, but not everybody can do that, It's not everybody's gift. And then they talk gently and kindly about all the people that arrange the coffee cups and the cakes after the meeting. I mean, I know a guy that's sober, is he sober? January, 50 years. That guy does not like to talk. You'd have to have a lot of guts just to ask him. I mean, then he probably might, maybe not. But I'm going to tell you, he's the best coffee maker in Alcoholics Anonymous. He's at the door, he's in his seat, you see him all the time. Boy, is his contribution greater than anybody else's? It's not greater than mine. I mean, it's greater than mine. It's greater than mine. He affects thousands of people. They're looking at the back of his head. Some of the meetings we go to, they ask you to raise your hand, for the first year, and how many people, and then how many people from 1 to 5, and how many people from 5 to 10. I mean, we hold our breath. I hold my breath. I don't care how sober I am. He's sober a lot longer than me. I hold my breath till I see Chuck's hand go up. He's still here. The only thing that's going to take that guy out is he's going to die. How do you become an old-timer? Don't drink. Don't die. He sticks his hand up. Someday his hand won't be up. It'll be so sad. I will feel so sad until I have time to pause and become quiet and realize we're safer for him not putting his hand up. He will be of more protection to us because we will be under the grace of another person that has gone on. Same with Jules. Why do I go to that Sunday meeting? That thing is a drag. I mean, the politics, the crap that goes on. Under normal circumstances, I couldn't stand going there. It's gone to hell in a handbasket, this meeting. I've been going there for 20-something years. I've been complaining about it for half of it. Finally, he said to me, stop complaining or become the goddamn secretary of the meeting. I'll just rather complain about it. I go, why do I go? I go because Jules is sitting in the kitchen. He started the meeting 48 years ago. I sit beside him in the kitchen. It was such an honor to sit in the kitchen. I graduated from the front row to the kitchen. Took 20 years to get to the kitchen. Chuck sits there, Jules sits there, Bill Walters sits there. Bill's gone on. And one of the highest moments of my sober life was to attend the funeral of Bill Waters, who I sat in the kitchen with year after year, Sunday after Sunday after Sunday after Sunday. You really miss that presence and that familiarity. And it hasn't been the same. We kind of broke up the kitchen group. I don't know. We're sitting in the meeting now. Just doesn't feel the same. Just doesn't feel the same. But they're there. They're there. They don't care that I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma on Sunday. You should have been at the goddamn meeting. But I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, being of service. You should be at service at your own meeting, for Christ's sake. We wouldn't have... Now, I still hear that. I feel like a newcomer. Are they carrying the message? They are to me. So I don't think that anybody in Alcoholics Anonymous, even the people that hide in the corner, are not sharing in some manner in a 12-step way. The shy, retiring, frightened to death people who hide in the corners are more important than anyone else. Because when I was a newcomer, I saw one of those guys, more shy, more frightened than I. And I noticed him every single meeting. And when I was ready to leave Alcoholics Anonymous, I kind of got used to him saying hello to me. And I knew how shy he was, and I knew how shy I was, and I would just sort of do that back. I started when I joined AA. I was terrified. Just waved at him. Just waved. And I kind of looked forward to it. Hi. Hi. And I used to come in, right when the meeting started and get the hell out right at the end of the Lord's Prayer. I had a spot on this bleacher, and I was out the door. I mean, out the door before, amen. On the amen, I was in the car. But when I began to notice this very shy, retiring guy, very shy, I waited, till he waved. And then I kind of hung around till he waved. And then I said hi to him so that he would come closer. Now, the only mistake I made is he had a twin brother. And the twin brother ran the bloody meeting. He was the secretary. He was the complete opposite of this guy, who was the nicest guy, the nicest, most retiring guy. And here he had this twin brother who was just a real pain, you know. I mean, one of those. He makes the word redneck look like it doesn't. Big, buckle and 15, he was just one of those kind of guys. You see him. I mean, when God strikes those guys, it's really fun. They get soft as mush. But in the meantime, they're hard as nails, and they think they're in charge of everything. And little gal, they call you. That kind of guy. Unbelievable. So I thought that Jerry had said to me, Lila, let's have a cup of coffee after the meeting. Well, hell, this was like 6 months of this shy thing. And who's making a 12-step call on who? I'm coming to have a shy guy go like that. So I can go like that back and have some human contact. And I thought, well, he was really kind of aggressive tonight. But I said, okay, I'll meet you at the such and such coffee shop, I get to the coffee shop. It's the wrong brother. Oh, man, Leo. I couldn't believe it. I didn't like the guy. I said, Leo, it is not going to work, okay? I don't like you. I don't like your whole... Well, we ended up being the best of friends, Leo and I. I would never... And, of course, Leo's the secretary next week. He's got me leading the meeting. I'm now involved. And he says, you don't participate in these meetings. What the hell's the matter with you? Didn't they teach you anything at the hole in the ground? Your job is to do the sugar cubes and the sugar cubes. That's it. I was in charge of sugar cubes. That was it. Couldn't handle more than the sugar. Somebody else had the milk. He gave everybody a job. I lined those sugar cubes up. I put them in designs. I made them into things. I stacked them. If anybody took a sugar cube, I practically killed them at the back of the room. I mean, how could they possibly? He said, you're never going to be in charge of cookies. You're too obsessive and too compulsive. This is ridiculous. But by now I was involved in Alcoholics Anonymous. And the quiet, retiring guy is the guy that I ran into that I mentioned yesterday. After all those years, I walked into a meeting in the valley to speak, and there he was. Still sober. We're both crying like mad. He's no longer shy. He's in charge of the bloody meeting and doing his thing. And his brothers had 17 wives and acted just like he should have acted. And here's Jerry with the same wife all these years. And we had such a good time talking about who paid a 12-step call on who. And I was able to thank him for making a 12-step call on me. And we were so grateful to one another. Now, that makes, in my mind, my experience, the shy man in the back of the room, probably the biggest secret of them all. Because all the other newcomers couldn't be that much different than me. They're going to feel safer with that guy than they are with me or you. But in the long run, we clearly realized that these are only the pains of growing up, and nothing but good can come from them if we turn more and more to the entire 12 steps for the answers. This is the third time now he's talked about all of the steps. Now comes the biggest question yet. What about the practice of these principles in all of our affairs? Can we love the whole pattern of living as eagerly as we do the small segment of it as we discover when we try to help other alcoholics achieve sobriety? This is the real test, isn't it? I mean, it's easy for us to function with each other in AA, especially at the beginning. I mean, we help each other out. We're very good with one another. But what about the world? How do we take that out into our homes and into our jobs and into the world? Can we bring the same spirit of love and tolerance into our sometimes deranged family lives that we bring into AA group? Can we have the same kind of confidence and faith in these people who have been infected and sometimes crippled by our own illness that we have in our sponsors? Faith and confidence in our partners. I mean, really. Instead of putting it all on these people that are bigger than us in our mind. Can we actually carry the AA spirit into our daily work? Can we meet newly recognized responsibilities to the world at large? Newly recognized responsibilities would be these new ideas. Furthermore, how shall we come to terms with seeming failure or success? Can we now accept Step 6 and adjust to either despair or pride? Can we accept Step 6, poverty, sickness, loneliness, bereavement with courage and serenity? Humility. Can we steadfastly content ourselves, except with the humbler yet sometimes more durable satisfactions when the brighter, more glittering achievements are denied us? Acceptance, acceptance, acceptance. We know this because we see monotony, pain, and even calamity turn to good use by those who keep on trying to practice AA's 12 steps. I mean, couldn't be more redundant. Without necessarily taking the first drink, we are often quite far off beam. talking about us sober people here now. Our troubles sometimes begin with indifference. The beginning of spiritual deficiency, the only thing you have to fear as a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous is a spiritual deficiency. You will be protected from any calamity that will befall you in life. You must protect yourself from a spiritual deficiency. It is the only thing, the only defense you have against the drink is to enlarge your spiritual life. The only reason you will drink and you will make that decision stone cold sober is if you have a spiritual deficiency. It will begin with indifference. And then it will turn into severe judgment. And you will stop going to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that will be the end. You will have kicked the we in the teeth. You will spit in the face of your own survival. And you will become self-reliant. And you will have to find peace somewhere else. You don't have anywhere else to go to find that peace. You have proven that to yourself before. You cannot find it anywhere else. This is it. You have to stay. It's too late now anywhere. You're here. You know too much. We temporarily cease to grow because we feel satisfied that there is no need for all of AA's 12 steps. I know, I temporarily stopped growing for about 18 years. We are doing fine on a few of them. It says right here, this is what happens to us. Every one of us. They're writing about the experience of sober people. Maybe we were doing fine on only 2 of them. The first step, actually really the first half, and the part of the 12th step where we carry the message. In AA slang, and this is in 1939, same slang going on today, it was known as 2-stepping. We've gotten a little more sophisticated. Actually, in my experience now, we have half of the first step and the 12th step. Big. And then they throw in the 4th step and the 8th step, because Christ, everybody knows how to talk about them. It's a little bit of a power trip. So between 1, 12, 4, and 8, and 5, maybe. Mostly. That's it. How many meetings do you go to? Maybe it's different in Tulsa. But I can tell you where I live. I don't hear a lot about 6 and 7. Rarely, if ever. 1, 12, 4, 8, 5, and 9. Forgot them. All the steps that are about human powers. Blow off 6 and 7 where it says cooperate with God. Blow off 7 where it says humbly ask. Who? Your sponsor? No. God. Got to have these guides. Got to have these angels. Got to have these sponsors. Got to have these people in your life. They keep you here. They keep you here so you can cross over to the threshold so that you can see the path you're on. You're on the path. Take a look. Conscious contact. See where you are, who you are, and where you are going. Jack McNally stood up at a podium not too long ago, 40-something years. And he said, for 20-something years, I was who you wanted me to be, and I went where you wanted me to go. And he said, and now, I know who I am, and I know where I'm going. I thought, oh my God, I'm crying. I knew what he meant. Sober as a judge. I had spent years. I'm who you want me to be, and I'm going where you want me to go. For the last 10 years, I've been trying to get the courage and learn. I'm like in the baby stages. Infant, small, babbling. Finding out, I think I know who I am. I know enough to know that I want to know more. And I know where I'm going. Christ, I don't know where it is, but I'm going. And I'm on the path, and I know it, and I'm addicted to it, and I love it. I love it. I love being in the sunlight of the Spirit, they call it. I just love it. I'm in shock when I forget about it. Out there by myself, off in some tangent, and I go, oh, jeez. I have to use the serenity prayer. Help me. get myself back. Well, we can surely have a chance if we switch from 2-stepping, it says here, to 12-stepping. If we are willing to receive, this receive word is all over the place, the grace of God which can sustain and strengthen us in any catastrophe. You're promised that. Our basic troubles are the same as everyone else's. But when we make an honest effort to practice these principles in all our affairs, well-grounded AAs seem to have the ability, by God's grace, to take these thoughts in stride and turn them into demonstrations of faith. That is humility. But also, like others, we often discover a greater challenge in the lesser and more continuous problems of life. Now, remember yesterday, they went from these huge, big problems to the less violent aspects, to milder aspects, and now they're calling them more continuous problems of life. Our answer is still more spiritual development. In the big book, they call that enlarge your spiritual life. The 12 and 12, still more spiritual development. Only by this means can we improve our chances for a really happy and useful life. As we grow spiritually, we find that our old attitudes toward our instincts need to undergo drastic revisions. Our desires for emotional security and wealth, for personal prestige and power, for romance and for family satisfactions, all these have to be tempered and redirected. I mean, he's getting down to it now. It's the end of the road. This is in the pot of gold. We have learned that the satisfaction of instincts cannot be the sole aim and end of our lives. But when we are willing to place spiritual growth first, then and only then do we have a real chance. You'll read the big book and you'll read the 12 and 12 up to now and it'll say, go ahead, run out there, do all the stuff. Help everybody, do everything. But ultimately, this is it. This is it. At the end of the rainbow, this is what's going to happen to you. Drastic revision. Have to be tempered and redirected. All those imagined and real fears have to be looked at. All those old ideas have to become new ideas. The nature of who you are, you have to go back and restore yourself to that. And after we come into AA, if we go on growing, it doesn't say you have to, If we go on growing, our attitude and actions towards security, emotional security and financial security, the same social, sexual, and security instincts they're talking about, commence to change profoundly. Don't forget, in the first few years of AA, under that graceful umbrella of the God of AA that protects all newcomers, this happens by itself. I mean, somehow this magical spiritual energy comes in and it cleans your car and cleans your apartment and gets you new shoes and kind of, snaps you up, and you start showering regularly, and I don't know, you show up on time places and things get more organized. That kind of happens almost by rote. Just enough for you to become grateful to be alive, so that you can begin to think, who do I thank for this? And so you can begin to realize, gee, I'm on the path. And now it's inside. Now I have to go inside. Like most people, we have found that we can take our big lumps as they come, but like others, we often discover a challenge, a greater challenge, a lesser and more continuous problem. I've just read that. Okay. And then they tell you what happens, of course, always. Bill Wilson always tells you what happens if you don't decide to grab the golden ring, look in the little pot at the end of the rainbow, or see the path you're on. He'll tell you, well, if you could try to play God and dominate those about you. You can be over-dependent upon people. You can have unreasonable demands. You can think the world owes you a living. You can behave childishly. You can refuse to learn things. You can become blah, 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 blah. And he goes on to tell you exactly. He always gives you the option. You always have the option of not doing it. It became clear that if we ever were to feel emotionally secure among grown-up people, getting heavy now, we would have to put our lives on a give-and-take basis. We would have to develop the sense of being in partnership or brotherhood with all those around us, a sense. We saw that we would need to give constantly of ourselves without demands for repayment. When we persistently did this, we gradually found that people were attracted to us as never before, and even if they failed us, we could be understanding and not too seriously affected. We weren't doing it by ourselves. We were not alone. When we developed still more, we discovered the best possible source of emotional stability to be God Himself. We found that dependence on His perfect justice, forgiveness, and love was healthy. Well, what is perfect justice, forgiveness, and love? What could that God be giving you if you used other words for that? What happens when you get perfect justice, forgiveness, and love? There's no judgment there. You are not judged for anything. And love was healthy, and it would work where nothing else would. If we really depended upon God, we couldn't very well play God to our fellows, nor could we feel the urge wholly to rely on human protection and care. A human being will ultimately do what Scotch did. I mean, you can be disappointed. You'll never be disappointed if you've got God. And chances are you'll surround yourself with human beings who won't disappoint you either. These were the new attitudes that finally brought many of us, the new ideas, that finally brought many of us an inner strength and peace that could not be deeply shaken by the shortcomings of others or by calamity not of our own making. That is a huge spiritual promise. I mean, the promises in this book. Then it goes on to talk about how lonely it was to be, now they give you a promise, they tell you what it's like not to use that promise. The loneliness of alcoholism and all of that, and how unhappily, and then they go on to talk to you about sex and security, and I'm going to skip all of that because you can read about it, and about the three areas of instincts that go out of awry and how to handle those, and how you're going to need a willingness to repair all that, and behave like a partner in your marriage, and you're going to have to realize that, the prospective partners need to be solid AAs and long enough acquainted to know their compatibility at spiritual, mental, emotional levels is a fact and not wishful thinking. I mean, you're going to really have to look at yourself and begin to look at the people that you attract and that you have in your life. And I mean, really, you can't drag people down this path, kicking and screaming. And you can't blame them if you're dragging them for you're not progressing. And worst of all, it says here, we forgot God. That's the worst thing that's going to happen after this indifference and apathy and all of that sets in. You'll forget God. In Money Matters, it says, in Money Matters we had faith only in ourselves. And they go on to talk about all of those things. But as time passed, we found with the help of AA's 12 steps, we would lose those fears no matter what our material prospects were. So they're talking about not harming your family, having a change of attitude there, not being afraid of the financial situation. If our circumstances happened to be good, we no longer dreaded a change for the worse, for we had learned that these troubles could be turned into great values. It did not matter much what our material condition was, but it did matter a lot what our spiritual condition was. When, with God's help, we calmly accepted our lot, step 6, then we found we could live at peace with ourselves and show others who still suffered the same fears that we could get over them too. We found that freedom from fear was more important than freedom from want. Step 7. He learns that he can be content as long as he plays well whatever cards life deals him. Acceptance. He's still ambitious, but not absurdly so, because he can now see and accept actual reality. The difference between real and imagined. It's also that yoga thing, no resistance. Soon. We have seen that we were prodded by unreasonable fears or anxieties, unreasonable, imagined, into making a life business of winning fame, money, and what we thought was leadership. So false pride became the reverse of the ruinous coin marked fear. We simply had to be number one people to cover up our deep, lying inferiorities. In fitful successes, we boasted of greater feats to be done. In defeat, we were bitter. If we didn't have much of any worldly success, we became depressed and cowed. Then people said we were of the inferior type. But now we see ourselves as chips of the same old block. At heart, we had all been abnormally fearful. Out of balance. Way out of balance. It mattered little whether we sat on the shore of life drinking ourselves into forgetfulness or had plunged in recklessly and willfully beyond our depth. But today, this is a cute little thing they say here, in well-matured AAs. I don't know that that's like the amount of sobriety. I do think it's the amount of experience on the spiritual path. And the amount of experience is something only becomes an experience when it's acknowledged. That's why people tend to do the same thing over and over and over again. It's not an experience. It's just something that happens to them over and over and over and over and over again. They say, why doesn't this always happen to me? Because you never complete the experience. You've never taken it to God, and you've never seen what would happen if that went away. Do you have enough faith to find out what is behind that fear? Oof. Somebody asked me yesterday, about faith, and I said, well, the greatest example of faith is there's a cliff, jump off. That's the third step, by the way. There it is, jump off. Will you be caught? Of course you'll be caught. I don't know where, though. And then talks about service, true service. Service gladly rendered, obligations squarely met, troubles well accepted and solved with God's help. The knowledge that at home or in the world outside we are partners in a common effort. The well understood fact that in God's sight all human beings are important. The proof that love freely given surely brings a full return. The certainty that we are no longer isolated and alone in self-constructed prisons. The surety that we need no longer be square pegs in round holes, but can fit and belong in God's scheme of things. These are the permanent and legitimate satisfactions of right living for which no amount of pomp or circumstance, no heap of material possessions could possibly be substitutes. True ambition is not what we thought it was. True ambition is the deep desire to live usefully and walk humbly under the grace of God, the love and protection of God. For it is only by accepting and solving our problems that we begin to get right with ourselves and with the world around us and with Him who presides over all. Understanding is the key to right principles and attitudes, and right action is the key to good living. Therefore, the joy of good living is the theme of AA's 12 steps. AA's 12th step. With each passing day of our lives, every one of us sense more deeply the inner meaning of AA's simple prayer. God grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's it. There's no more. Every time I read the 12 and 12, it's brand new. I'm standing up here now, having just read all those things, and it's like they're brand new. It's a new feeling every time I read it. It's so comforting and so assuring and gives me so much strength. I hope it's the same for you, and I hope it's been helpful, and I appreciate you letting me come to Tulsa. I do want to take some time, since it's 4:15, if you have any questions, anything at all that you would like to talk about, I would be happy to do that. If not, we don't have to. No? You do.
An old idea, something that I am struggling with right now is feeling part of my spirituality is I'm starting to, venture into thinking of God as Spirit of the universe, but at the same time I was brought up in a different way. So in trying to venture something that feels blasphemous, because I feel like I'm rebellious, and there are a lot of things in my spirituality that I read that sound like punishing, and I rebel instantly. And then the next step to that is I feel I rebel, and then I feel guilty, and then I'm even more separated from God. And then I'm, very close to the brink of breaking my abstinence. So that's one of the things I'm looking for, a new idea to be, because I keep going in the same circle. I come back to a meeting and I feel better, but I need a new idea to change that, to stop it completely. I have a very hard time stopping that.
Did you all hear that question?
I think it'd be helpful if you repeat it, especially.
Oh, yeah, for the thing. Let's see. I was hoping you'd say, yeah, I all heard it, and we could just go right on. If I understand what you just said to me, then what you're saying is that you have a pretty much fundamentalist religious God that you are having a problem with because you in AA have come to see God in a much broader way, and the God that you see in AA seems to lack judgment, and the God of your religion seems to be of judgment. Is that right?
My God isn't vengeful or judging, but sometimes I read that from the human side of the religion that I belong to.
I see.
And I have a very hard time separating the human part. I get really caught up in the human side instead of the spiritual side because they box it all up.
I see. So as my friend Sil Santion I have to imagine now what she would say, because she talks about this quite regularly, and she was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. And I've learned so much listening to her speak about her transition from this very, very, very strict religion to her changing concept of God in AA, and how to take the best in that. And my own experience was that of Roman Catholic in Ireland, nuns and all of that, to this tremendously broad concept, and how to make that transition. It's very, very difficult, because when you're raised with the concept of good, and this is my experience now. First of all, to qualify, I have great respect for any religion, because it doesn't matter to me. I have a spiritual outlook. It doesn't really matter to me. It only matters to me if you try to convince me that I should have your religion. Then I have a really big problem with that. But if you do your thing and I do mine, we're going to get along fine. I just can't imagine that even if there is a heaven, that all the paths don't get to the same place, personally. And I can't imagine that there's a God who really would make us suffer like that. I just don't believe it. I think it's good crowd control. I mean, you asked me my opinion. This is the truth. I might as well tell it to you. This is what I think. I think it's great crowd control. I think it was necessary. I mean, you got all these people running out there. If you don't tell them you're going to do something to them, they're going to go wild. And there was enough going on to upset a few people, and so be it. And I try to read the Bible, and I believe that there's great things in there. There's great symbology. But I have a really hard time believing that it's the Word of God. I mean, I just can't imagine that the guy would have been that well documented in the short period of time that he spun around. So either he had the best PR people. So I think there's a large, broad amount of interpretation. And that's why I think that the spiritual path is so individual. Because from that, you take all the good things and you leave what you want. Leave the rest. That's what they say in AA, isn't it? Take what you want and leave the rest. It's very difficult. I will tell you that I have found great solace from my religious background, of being raised Roman Catholic. When I have had great pain, death of my brother, I spent a lot of time at St. Patrick's Cathedral in front of the altar to St. Anthony. When I lose something, instantly call upon a prayer to one of the saints to find it for me. Still works. I have a comforting feeling, even though they annoy me, seeing all that stuff up on my mother's wall. The Sacred Heart and crucifixes and little water things. Makes me feel comforted. So I still use it for what I get out of it. Do I believe in fire and hell and damnation? Absolutely not. I mean, it took me years on AA to not believe that. I mean, to believe that there's no good or bad, that you're not going to be. I don't believe in karma. Try that. I just don't believe it. I don't believe what goes around comes around. I believe you have a chance to correct it the minute you do it. And it isn't going to come back if you make the amend and you adjust it. I believe the steps allow you to do that. Right in the middle of the stream you go, woof, it's like the young lady that told me. The first negative thing is powerless over it, but the second one, I can do something about it. I can catch that. I can throw that ball back. So I use it for what it gives me. When I first was on AA, I wouldn't have made it without that angel. I wouldn't have made it without a tangible, imagined, pretend angel. I was talking to this guy in West Covina about the angel one night, I guess, and in a meeting, another couple of guys. I didn't even see this one guy. I said, geez, I've had this angel, for a year because I just couldn't make it. I had to lean into the angel. I felt safe with the angel. The angel was in my car. The angel came to work. I talked to the angel, put it in the bathroom, sat it on the tub, sat it on the toilet. I had that angel everywhere. I needed that angel with me for a whole year. And, kind of at the end of the year, I was able to change a little bit. Well, that angel was a very Catholic angel. It was on the right, for God's sake, big, right out of the picture. Years later, I was in a West Covina meeting at the 502 Club. In West Covina, they have a 502 Club that Jane mentions in Pasadena. But in a 502 Club, and this huge, big motorcycle guy comes in, bald head. Huge. Big leather vest, no T-shirt, nothing, and just hair and vest. You can give you an idea, okay? Huge bike. Takes up about 2 parking places. I thought, oh, God, it comes right up to me, and I thought, oh, no. I'd spoken, I hadn't been speaking very much. It was like the middle of my sobriety, and I was still in that, I believe in angels, and, because I still did, and I was praying like mad, and I was lighting candles to everybody. I mean, what the hell, whatever works, I was doing it all, because I still didn't have any belief that there was even a God. I was just doing all this in hopes there was. I mean, Duke said to me, act as if, make one up. Okay, I'll take an angel. That's what I like. So I was doing all of this stuff, and I thought, oh, God, this is the kind of guy that's going to come up to me and say, what are you talking about, all this religious gibberish? I don't know what the hell you're saying. Action is the word. If you went out there and worked with a goddamn newcomer, you'd be fine. So I thought, oh, this is it. I was just getting ready to brace myself. And the guy came up and he said, a couple of years ago, you were out here talking to my friends about this angel you had. I said, yeah. Don't, I'm getting ready to defend myself. It says in the book we don't have to defend ourselves or our God, but oh no, do I know that? No. I'm getting ready to right away. Hey, I don't have that angel anymore. It's okay. I don't have the angel. Don't worry about it. He says, well, I'm an undercover cop with the San Bernardino Police Department or something, I said, oh, it made it a little easier. Undercover, if you're not like that all the time. This huge, big, scary guy. And he said, I want to thank you for something. I said, oh, what could he possibly want? I thought I was going to be killed. He said, I want to thank you because when you're finished talking to my friends, you said that if they didn't have a God, why, they could use your angel. He said, I didn't have a God. Having a really hard time. Kind of needed somebody with me. It's very scary being an undercover cop. Look at me, he says. I can appreciate that. And he said, I borrowed the angel. And he said, a week later, it caught a bullet from me. And he'd been using it ever since. And the guy, he changed right in front of my eyes. I never saw that big, burly motorcycle guy. I saw the sweetest, warmest, we're crying. It was one of those moments. It was one of those moments. So now that I no longer feel that my God, and the one you're talking, has any judgment whatsoever, I honestly believe, and I've said this from podiums before, that if I were to go up to the tower, if I had become so spiritually deficient, then I hadn't talked to anybody, and let that indifference and judgment set in, or something awful happened, I would go up to the tower, and I hadn't drank, but a lot of times awful things happen, you don't drink. And I would go up to the top of the tower, and just for some reason the rage would be so bad, I would just shoot all these people. I have a God that I expect would not judge me. That no harm would befall me. And I have in my life friends that if I were to get off that tower, I'd go knock on their door. And I would say, Jane, I just shot all these people. And she would say, Lila, you must have gotten too angry, too lonely. Too tired. Have you eaten today? Have you been to a meeting? What has happened to you? Whatever it is, we're going to work it out. We're going to work it out. And they would all call each other, and they would come over, and they would make me a cup of tea, and they would get me a banana, and maybe a sandwich. And they'd say, now what do we have to do in order to amend the situation? And I would be loved. Because all I had been was just a broken human being that day. And I would have a God that would not throw me away. I would not have to live the rest of my life worrying that I would burn in hell. Now that's an extreme statement to make. But I believe it. I believe that I am going to be welcomed upon leaving this life with joy and love and care. And thanked for hanging in there and not giving up and learning as much as I can. And I believe that if I have any regret on the day that I die, it will be that I never took the moment to say thank you, to smile, that the ripple effect of my intolerance, my selfishness, my dishonesty, and my self-seeking will have hurt somebody. And I'll turn around and I'll look at this life as it goes in front of me, and I will say, oh God, and the pain of having hurt somebody else will be more hell than I'll ever need to experience. And it will be by my choosing that I will look. And that God, and that energy, and all those people that have gone on before me, just like my friends in my kitchen, if I had to be in that situation, why, they'll be standing there and saying, it's okay, Lila, we had to look too. And I will be loved into the next world. I will be loved into the next world. I was loved into this one. I'll be loved into the next one. There is no reason why I have to wait until the day I die to start feeling that love. That would be a sin. And I don't even believe you can have such a thing. There is no waste, there is no right and wrong, there is no good and bad. I no longer do something to get a reward. I no longer do something to be good. I could care less if you think I'm good. I don't care what you think. I, honest to God, have enough trouble trying to figure out whether I care about myself. I could give a shit about what you think. If somebody says the way you are and the what you're going to go straight to hell. Wonderful. Great. Maybe I will. I don't think so. Where I'm going, you might have more fun. Obviously you're not coming with me, but I'm not going where you're going, so have a good day. Now that's how I feel about it. Does that make it easier for you? It puts it in human terms. Take the best of your religion. Even now when I go into a Roman Catholic church, I mean, if I see somebody there that doesn't kneel down in front of the altar, I am offended. I think, don't they have any respect? I who don't go into the place. But when I do, I am immediately Catholic. Immediately Irish Catholic. I want it in Latin. I went to the funeral mass for my brother. It's been a long time since I'd been, and it was in English. I said to my mother, what the hell happened to the Roman Catholic Church? I like the Latin. I like all the stuff. I like to get high on that smoke stuff. I want it all there. My mother said, well, now, everybody's receiving, Irish Catholic families strung out for 2 rows. Everybody's going to be going to communion. I thought, oh, geez, I'm the only one not going. I thought, well, why aren't you going? A little voice said, you're not going, Lila, because you haven't been to confessions in, a long time. Look what has happened to you since you haven't been to confessions. And I sat there and I thought, wait a minute. I've been to AA. I'm as current as you can be. I'm confessing all the time to somebody about something. I said to my mother, I'm going. Oh, the look on her face. Just lost her son and she just lost her daughter at the exact same moment. And she just, mothers who have raised people like us, why, they just shrug and they go, geez, turn me right over to her Catholic people. And I went to receive communion. I couldn't believe it. They touched the host. I practically shot on a plane back to Ireland. I was so wrecked. Suddenly all my fears came back. They're touching the host. They speak English. The altar is reversed. What is going on here? This is terrible. The world's going to end as a result of this kind of thing. Now, you don't think that I still have a little bit of the Catholic in me? The guy's mumbling something. My mouth is open. My mother says to me, Lila, say amen. Say thank you. I said, now you have to talk back to the priest so you can get the host? The whole thing upset me. The whole thing upset me. I don't practice my religion. But believe me, for those that do, they should do it right. I think there's great symbology and a lot to be learned from all of the different religions. That's what concerns me about Alcoholics Anonymous being restricted now with things like the Lord's Prayer and all the other stuff that we kind of put into it. It was a good idea at the time, but, it's way beyond the United States of America now. Alcoholics Anonymous is in Canada and the Middle East and all other kind of countries. And I really think that, it's enough with the St. Francis Prayer of Assisi because it's so general and so broad. And the Serenity Prayer does not identify any kind of God. But I think that all religions contribute something. And this is the truth. I think that Jesus, Mary, Joseph, and every one of them are almost equal. Buddha, everybody came here. They were all messengers. Are they any different than the shy man in the back of the room? Really? Really? So it's there to give us some sort of parameter. But somebody like me, well, I can't live within those parameters. That's why I drank. I don't want any rules. I don't want anything. So I've come to Alcoholics Anonymous to get away from all of that. And now I have 12 steps that I must absolutely do every day. I have meetings that I must go to all of the time. I have books I have to read in the morning. I have people I don't even know that I have to talk to. I have more rules and regulations in my life than I know what to do with. And I'm madly in love with the ritual and the discipline. Don't be afraid of somebody else's opinion. It doesn't count. They won't be there with you when you meet your God. It will be just you. And for any question that I have left, what do I do about the fact that I am afraid? I mean, how many years have I written about my fear of judgment? I'm so terrified. For so many years I was so terrified that I was going to be judged. That I wasn't doing the right thing. That I wasn't doing enough. That I wasn't good enough to my family. Wasn't good enough to this one. Wasn't good enough. I'm going to die. I'm going to be judged. I can't live like that. It couldn't be true. You know why I don't think it's true? I don't think it's true because for the first time, I really don't speak about this a lot, but for the first time I believe that there's a life after this one. I believe that we go on and that there's more. I don't understand what shape or form it is, but I believe it exists. I believe that there's an invisible world. I believe there's a world of silence. And I believe that I have a foot in it. And I believe that the path I've taken in Alcoholics Anonymous, ever so gradually, the couple of times they mention your soul here and hereafter, confirms that. And I believe that I'm kind of walking back and forth between these two places. I heard a story not too long ago about the pass through the Alps, very, very difficult drive from, I think, Italy to somewhere, Swiss Alps. And, you know, it's a very narrow road, and when you're driving on these, if there's an accident, you're backed up for hours and hours and hours, because it's not like here. And there was a big accident. This is a story. I mean, they're all supposed to be true. Do I know? No. But did I hear it, and did it change my life? Absolutely. Heard it a long time ago. So I'm using my own interpretation, because years have gone by since I've heard it. But there was this big accident on this road. So the family, you know, in August in Europe, they all travel, and family, this was a particular family, and they were stuck for hours, you know, on the side of the road because of the accident up ahead. And this one person was sitting in the car and was wondering, you know, about the poor people up ahead, because as the vehicles go by, very slow in Europe, very different than here, they knew that, you know, by the type of the vehicles and everything, that, you know, somebody obviously died. And it had to die because the backup was so very long. And the number of vehicles and everything. So, and this woman started to pray for whoever it was that was dying or died. She didn't know. She just started to pray for whoever it was that was dying. She had all this time to wait, and she's had time. So she's praying away about the poor person in the accident, and I hope that they're okay, and if they're not okay, and I'm going to pray for them. And she's praying, she's praying, she's praying, she's praying, she's praying. Flash to the next scene. This guy wakes up in the hospital, and he can't get this vision out of his mind. The man that was in the accident. A few months go by, because it took a while for him to find what he was looking for. And he knocked on the door of this woman's house one day. And he said, I wanted to thank you for praying for me. And she didn't remember. And she said, he said, well, in the accident, I saw your car. I was floating above when I got in the accident. I left my body. He said, I was floating above, and I was looking at the cars, and he said, I got attracted and pulled toward your car. And he said, I remember the license plate number. He said, and I took all this time for me to find you through tracking of your license plate number. He said, I just came to thank you for praying for me, because I heard you praying for me, and I'm a complete stranger, and I thought it was really wonderful. You see, he didn't die. Now, where was he? And how did he find her? And how did he get that number? Now, the day I heard that, and I had heard 1,000 stories like that, I thought they were fine. But the day I heard that one, why, I just that day was ready to believe that that existed. And that was the beginning of the opening of that door for me. And I never looked back. And then I knew I wasn't alone. You see, my whole life, I have felt I have been alone. The night I tried to kill myself, and before coming to AA, never quite got around to it, got to AA instead. I didn't kill myself because I knew that I would be so lonely and be alone. I would be alone forever. So I didn't care if there was another life or not. It didn't matter to me. I was alone. I didn't feel connected to my mother, my family. What is it with somebody that has no connection like that? I just felt disconnected from everybody. I mean, I had a family, had a country, had all that stuff. I just felt like every time I connected to them, I was ripped out or taken out of my country or taken away from my grandmother or taken to a new country. Just didn't feel connected to anything. It was a horrible personal pain. Alcoholism didn't satisfy us. Obviously, I would be still doing it. So here I was in AA, and I still kind of felt it. And then I kind of got the connection with the AA people and started to get the little connection with the God, and it went right back. Man, I was doing the Stations of the Cross, and I loved going to the church and sitting there and looking at the statues and things because it was the only thing I knew. It was familiar. It was very familiar to me. And then as the years went by and I substituted one God for the other and I studied a little more about this religion and that religion and I listened a little more to people, I thought, wow, it's all about the search. And I don't know what this is all about. I began to know and to feel. See, I felt the presence of that angel. I mean, I used to joke about it, but the truth is, it was there. The truth is, I felt it. The truth is, I could lean into it. Now, that's what I thought, so that made it true for me. And when my angel kind of went off, and I grew up, I needed something. And then my brother died. I was sober. And he died from this disease. And he was 21 years of age. And he died on St. Patrick's Day. And his name was Patrick. And it was a very, very painful experience for me. And I liked having my brother present. I believed it. All the things that happened. I believed it. I believed that he was there. The whole family met. We all laughed. My mother went to say goodbye. She was the last one out. We were all waiting outside, every one of us. And yet my mother said later to my brother, "Thank you for coming to get me and carrying me out." My brother, my other live brother, he didn't. But my brother that had passed away was very tall and my mother was very small. And he used to come up behind her and lift her up and lead her around. And she said, I knew it was time to go when Billy, the wrong brother, the one that didn't, came and lifted me up and led me out. I'm available to hear all that now. It has to be a very loving God that allows you all that, that gives you back those that have gone on, that heals you with them, that lets you talk to the dead, that lets you make an amend to someone that after they're gone. You don't have to believe it. I believe it. That's what's happened to me in AA. I have 1 foot here and 1 foot there. It's marvelous. It's marvelous. That's why it was so easy for me to say to my Uncle Packy, "Welcome to Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm sorry that you're not in this life. Lots of experiences here. Sure don't want to go myself. You must have made the decision to get out. More power to you. I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss the familiarity of you, of knowing you were there, of feeling safe, of knowing that in Ireland somebody was still there for me. But you're not there now. But welcome to Tulsa, and I will learn a way to communicate with you in this new way. I will not throw you away, and I will not forget you." That's the kind of God I have now. There's no judgment. There's no anything. I'm not going to burn in hell. If I go and do something wrong, well, hell, I'm going to have to amend it or I'll feel terrible. But I will never be thrown away, and I will never be abandoned. I know that. It's the gift. It's promised to me all through the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Why would a God who took me off a bathroom floor throw me away? And yet I know that the same God is taking care of my sister. And she's making a total bunch of different decisions than I'm making. Here I am, sober on Alcoholics Anonymous, and there she is, with everything available to her, addicted to opiates, committing suicide, 1 pill at a time, in front of my eyes. I'm sad because she's my sister. I'm sadder because she's throwing away her life. She's got a different deal with her God than I do. That's all. They've got some other trip happening, and I don't know what it is. I'm only concerned because I selfishly don't want to feel the pain. But I know this. If I have to, I will. I have friends. I have AA. I have the love of my brothers here and there. I have my family here and there. I have a God that I trust. I have somebody waiting for me. I have somewhere to go. I know where I'm going. I know they are there. I am not afraid. I can't believe I'm not afraid. So, take the best. Leave the worst. Make it your own. And don't defend it. It says in AA, do not defend yourself or your God. I do not defend myself. I rarely talk about it, but if I had to, I wouldn't defend it. The psychic experience they talk about, this huge change, believe me, I have known people that are sober longer than I, that are very highly evolved people, and they have had experiences that have been profound. This woman that I mentioned earlier, Betsy Riordan, big, died at 40-something, 8 years of sobriety. Incredible experiences. Yoga in her 70s, for Christ's sake. And, way ahead of me. Believes in all sorts of things. Wonderful. Just wonderful. People that are willing to say, hey, there's got to be more. It's got to be big. It's bigger. Don't limit yourself. I can't even tell you how big it is. It's so big. I expect to be comforted by my brother if something happens to my sister. I expect it. I expect to make way for all those things. I expect to be greeted when I get there. I can only assume that it's just different. Now, when I was drunk, and now that I'm sober, these are two totally different things. They're totally different. I have the funny feeling that the life of the living and the life of the dead are just different, that's all. There's just a different perception. I find most of the time, for myself, when I am in great pain, usually over a death, that I find more peace from those that have gone on than the struggle of those that are living who are trying to help me. All they can do is what they do so lovingly and so generously. I say, would you like a cup of tea? Have you had enough to eat? You need to sleep. Perhaps you could talk. If you'd like to, let me take you to a meeting. Is there anything I can do for you? I understand. I love you. It's going to be okay. You'll get through this too. That's what we give each other. That's the most blessed thing we can give each other. Where does that come from? Where does that come from that we automatically in AA know how to do that? I don't think it came from me naturally. I think it comes from the better nature of who I am. I think it comes from the great reality deep within. The same gentleman, Cubby Selby, as I mentioned yesterday, said he no longer prays to God. He prays from God. He prays from God. Oh, from God. From God. To be plugged into that kind of source of power is so huge. I could barely say it. You know, they say, isn't it in Latin, Jane, that the eyes are the fountains looking out? Not things looking in, but looking out. How do you look out and see what you see, as opposed to just taking it in? Very different. This is such a new area for me. You see, they never wrote anything after the 12 and 12. The guy died. Bill Wilson was a huge fan of metaphysics. I really wish that he had written another book, when he was 20 or 30 years sober. I would love to have known where the divine intervention that occurred for this book would have taken him if he had written a book when he was 20 or 30 years sober. Where would it take us? There's nobody to guide us. There's nobody to lead the way. This is it. It's an individual journey from here on. I can tell you, we're all going to take 1,000 paths. Mine is getting broader all the time. I'm beginning to believe things I can't believe I'm beginning to believe. And I expect more. I want to walk into my house like my mother, who does it unconsciously. And when I hear a knock on the door, I want to say, let them in. Open my door and fill my house with everything invisible. I want to listen to the silent thoughts. I want to be able to shake hands with all the help that's available to me. Religion is a great thing. It taught me how to be spiritual. Religion tells me what to think. Spirituality tells me to soar. To take what I have thought and throw it away. Because it's too limited. It's too little. My concept of God now is so big, it changes every day. You could talk to me next week, it'd be a whole new thing. But the basis will be the same. It'll be the same because I protect it. I protect it by showing up at meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. I protect it by looking into the eyes of other alcoholics. I'm protecting it by knowing that I am safe. I am safe in the world as long as I am safely folded within the arms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I will have enough courage to go out. Spread my wings. Share with others even. But I don't ever forget that this is my sandbox. This is where I play. This is where I live. This is where I learned how to grow up. This is where I found my God. You are the people that have saved my life. A complete stranger will save my life. Tap on the sidewalk. Great chapter. You bet it is. Thank you. Thank you.